just to make sure everything is working, I am going to run my project by typing in shotgun -p space $ capital port space -o $IP. That's some Cloud9 goodness that just makes this thing work. It'll say your code is running at Sinatra project, whatever. Click that guy. Oh, look at that. GIPHY API app ready to go. We'll enter our search term, hit submit, and we should get an error. Let's see if we get an error. Nice. Sinatra does not know this ditty. That means we have an error that's telling us we need to add a post route inside our application controller class. So if you get this error, you're all set up. Your form is working. If you don't get this error, it means that you did not wire up the form with the proper method for results, to action to results, and the method equals post. So just as a heads up, it's really cool that Sinatra does this for us. Makes our errors so much easier to manage. Now back in the application controller, we can start to configure this up to actually do what Sinatra is telling us to do. So the first thing we're going to need to do is after line 12, we need to create a post request to the results route. So, there it is. So right here, I'm going to create a post to /results do, and I'm just going to say end because we haven't really figured out exactly what we're going to do yet. But the idea here is I always pseudocode out what I want to happen before I actually do it. And when I say pseudocode, I mean just like throw some comments in there as to like what I expect my code to do if it's working perfectly. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the user's input from the params hash. Then we're going to send the user's input to our GIPHY model.rb file. I think that's what we're going to call it. And then we're going to take the GIPHY response and send it to the results page and render the results page, results.erb. So I'm just going to say ERB results. Cool. And now the idea here is that GIPHY is a service that provides free access to a bunch of cool GIFs on the internet. My favorite GIF, just because it really demonstrates looping really well, and I actually show this in my looping lesson every year. Let me see if I can find it. Super hot fire GIF loop. This is my favorite one because it's maybe the perfect loop in the history of loops. Let me see if I can pull this up. Here, yeah, it's this one. Okay, someone explain to me, by the way, how this guy on the right over here, how his shoulder appears there when he hasn't even left the screen yet. That's the part that blows my mind every time I look at this. But it's the greatest loop in the history of loops. I literally show this as I explain iteration and looping every time I teach this lesson because it's my favorite one. If you have another one that you think does a better job at having a perfect loop, you tell me, because I don't think there's anything here that can tell you that the loop isn't perfect other than that the tree moves its position. Just as a heads up, I've studied this loop for like years, and my students and I sat down and like literally dissected every piece of it, just as a heads up. But yeah, this is what GIPHY does. It gives you GIFs like this, and you can just throw them in wherever you want. As long as you have the right search term, it'll find them. I think that's really, really cool. But the first thing we have to do is we have to create a GIPHY model.rb file, and I'm going to do that inside. I think in our models directory, we already have a file. It's called like sample models or something. We're going to go in there and we're going to rename this. I'm just going to click on this sample model.rb, control click on Max or right click or whatever it is, however you do things, and then click rename and call it GIPHY underscore model.rb. And I'm going to open it up. Let's go in there and make it happen. Oh, I also, you know what? I need a results.erb page in my views. So I'm actually going to make that right now as well. In my views directory, I'm going to create a new file called results.erb and hit enter. So my model view controller architecture should now include an application controller, a GIPHY model.rb, and two views, an initial index.erb view and a results.erb view. And if you have all of those files, that's literally all we're going to need to make this app work. Now all we need to do is put our logic inside our GIPHY model, grab data from the API, and render it in the erb.results template right here. So I'm going to save my application controller, and I'm going to open up the GIPHY model.rb and just clear out whatever is in there. Gone. And let's get this going. Now, before I dive into the logic here, I'm just going to create one method. This method is going to be called format API URL end. And it's going to take in a search term. And then I'm going to make one more method called hit, or let's just call it call GIPHY API. Yeah, that sounds like a good name for a method. Call GIPHY API with a URL. Cool? And so far, that is all I'm going to do inside my model, because I'm going to show you a little bit about what an API is, and then how we can access the data in an API first, and then we're going to actually do it in the code. So piece by piece, we're going to get to this. Cool? Everyone okay with this so far? All right. So I'm going to end this video here, and then we'll go into that next part in a second.